Hey everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA and choice tax relief. We help folks who owe the IRS or their state at least $10,000 of back taxes. And a lot of those folks right now are receiving this IRS Notice LT14. Okay. This LT14, it's a funny notice. It's a funny notice. I'll tell you why I think it's a funny notice in a bit. But basically, in this video, I'm going to tell you what this notice is and what it isn't. I'm going to go through it section by section here so you know what you're looking at. And then I'm going to tell you what you should do if you receive the IRS notice LT14. First of all, what is this notice? Well, let's start with what it's not. This notice is not a direct threat that the IRS is about to come after you. It's not a threat of levy notice, right? In fact, there's nothing really in this notice that even tells you about, oftentimes notices the IRS is going to list out all the nasty stuff the IRS can do for you if you don't pay, right? This notice is not one of those notices. This notice is a very nonchalant notice that is simply informing you, as you can see in the big bold letters on the first page, you still have an unpaid balance. We are seeing this notice being sent, not 100% of the time, but majority of the time, I would say, to taxpayers who have recently been affected by a disaster or who at least are residing in a federally declared disaster area that may have caused other IRS collection actions or activities or notices against them to be paused. Okay. With this notice serving the purpose of, okay, that happened. However, you still owe us money. You still have an unpaid balance. We're going to respect that. Hey, you may have gone through, or your neighbors may have gone through something very traumatic recently, but you still have this issue with the IRS to deal with that has not gone away. And now it is time for you to deal with it. Okay. At least from the IRS's perspective. Okay. And that's why below the you still have an unpaid balance language, they do mention the disaster thing. If a disaster recently occurred in your area, you may be able to get relief, and that's true. There may be things like payment extensions, penalty abatements, perhaps. Perhaps it's some kind of a mitigating circumstance and offer and compromise, due to the disaster, right? You can visit irs.gov/disaster for more information about disaster relief. I'm not going to get into that here. Next section, what you need to do. Obviously, the IRS wants you to pay them money, and they are not shy about that because it is fairly obvious that that's what they're trying to do. And they tell you right here, we're trying to collect unpaid taxes for the tax period shown on the next page. Here's what you owe in total, $31,374.06. Obviously, the IRS wants you to pay your balance in full right now, ASAP, right? They're nation's collection agency, right? That's what they want you to do. They do tell you if you can't pay in full right now, you may be able to pay your remaining balance over time in an installment agreement if you're current with your filing obligations. And if you can't pay due to financial hardship, the IRS may temporarily delay collection until your situation improves. That's CNC status. They don't specifically mention the offer and compromise here either, but that is an option as well. So, obviously the IRS wants you to pay in full. It's basically saying, look, you got to pay what you owe or get into some kind of resolution with us, right? And if you can pay what you owe, if you have millions of dollars set aside and you owe the IRS $31,374.06, I'm not a financial advisor, but it's probably in your best interest to just pay them off, right? You probably won't qualify for anything too amazing in terms of a resolution. Okay. Basically, what you need to do is either pay your balance off and get into a resolution, or maybe pay part of your balance off and get into a resolution on what's left. That's the underlying message here. Next page here, your billing summary. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's basically each tax return year, right? 17, 18, 19, the 1040 for the individual income tax return, the amount owed for that year, along with interest and failure to pay penalty, right? And the sum of all these numbers here should be this 31,37406 here. Okay. And this is essentially good as a payoff amount through 21 calendar days of this notice, right? So in this case, January 31st, 2025. Because beyond those 21 days, you're going to tack on more penalties and interest, right? It's good as a 10-day payoff amount for the notice date if the amount you owe is $100,000 or more, right? 10 business days in that case. 21-day calendar days, less than 100,000, 100,000 or more, 10 business days from the notice date, okay? Then they have this kind of additional information section that they're putting in. All the notices these days, right? Basic information about the IRS collection process on the IRS website, a number you can call the IRS at, you can contact them by mail here. Great, basic stuff. And they don't even tell you all about, most of the notices these days, we're seeing all this hullabaloo in them about this useless hullabaloo about, the taxpayer advocate service and low-income taxpayer clinics and a lot of other maybe minimally helpful things, right, in life. But we're not really, we're not seeing that in this notice. This notice is pretty thin, actually. A couple pages, and then, of course, a payment coupon on the last page. So, payment coupon, basically, look, if you want to pay the IRS, be a check or money order payable to U.S. Treasury, you can do that, right? You can pay the full amount due or a partial payment, right? Whatever you want. Send it in, mail it in, cut on the dotted line with the stub here, and you will have done your civic duty and paid the government taxes. Yay! But that may not be the best thing you should do. Could be, may not be. So what should you do if you get the LT14? Well, first, make sure it's accurate. Obviously, IRS makes mistakes. You see those numbers there. That billing summary, the amount you owe by year. You may have a number in your head. That number in your head may not be reflective of penalties and interest, right? But just make sure that what the IRS is saying you actually owe. If you don't, take it out with them. Call that number in the notice. Take it out with them. Second thing to look at is penalty abatement, right? Especially because you were recently in a disaster area or something like that, or you could have been, right? Is there any opportunity, any reasonable basis for which the IRS should either partially or fully abate the penalties and interest on penalties on your account right now? Okay, it's worth a shot. All right, so after you've done those things, you've established that the balance that you owe, you do actually owe that balance, and you've sought any penalty abatement against that balance. Well, then you got to figure out what you're going to do with that balance. Now, like I said, if you got money bags laying around, you can just easily pay off the debt. Well, that's probably the best course of action. If that's not the case, though, if you can't just afford to pay off this debt right now, then you got to enter into a resolution with the IRS on the tax debt, a tax relief option, so to speak. And lucky for you, I have a whole video dedicated to going over the main tax relief options available to you. And lucky for you, you can watch that video right now by clicking on the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And if you want a bunch more videos about tax relief options, I have a whole playlist here on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, folks. Okay, doesn't get any sweeter than this. Watch the videos, be educated, be informed, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.